Welcome to Classic Game Room, broadcasting from the Intergalactic Space Arcade. Do you love the Sega Saturn but want something a little more Japanese? Well, how about the Japanese Sega Saturn? I would read you the back of the box if I could. So I'll loosely translate it for you. This box contains more awesomeness than you can handle. It's the Sega Saturn that was sold in Japan. Look at all of these accessories that are not included in this box. Mouse sold separately. Fortunately, this box does include a Sega Saturn and a controller. The gray Sega Saturn with blue buttons. The Japanese model, which is pretty much the same as the Western one, except it's gray and plays Japanese games. This particular console is the original Sega Saturn model HST-3200, even though the box says HST-0001. It comes with this really nice gray Sega Saturn controller with blue buttons, which is, as far as I can tell, identical to the second model Sega Saturn controller sold in the US. The Japanese Saturn comes with this fabulous poster, ready for framing. But wait, there's more. It's not just a poster, it's a transformer that transforms into a game catalog. While I can't read much of this, I can enjoy the pretty pictures. Let's now take a look at the first generation Japanese Saturn next to the second generation American Sega Saturn. The most obvious difference is the color, but they also have slightly different logos, and the first generation and second generation have different buttons. There's also more venting on the original one and a read access light. Here's a look at the backs of both units. And I think they use the same cables. I didn't actually test that. The Japanese model does run on American power, and it outputs Ntsc video. Let's insert Dodonpachi and output fun. More than any other game console that I can think of, the Sega Saturn library is filled with incredible Japanese exclusives. Games like Dodonpachi, Danpachi, Layer Section, Radiant Silvergun, and many, many more. Here's an enormous stack of them. They come in these nice jewel cases, and they rock. The thing is, it's actually not that hard to get your Western Sega Saturn to play Japanese games. So is there really any need to get a Japanese Saturn?
Just a couple more steps!
The answer is not really, because the action replay card in a Western Saturn will let you play most of these games anyway. But it is super cool to have. And while I don't have any specific examples, I think it does play a few games that won't work on the Western Saturn with the action replay, which I happen to have inserted in the Japanese Saturn here for this shot, because I think some of these games need the additional RAM to work. And you know what I totally forgot to test is American games on the Japanese Saturn with the action replay. Well, the short answer is you want a Sega Saturn. Now, if you're an American viewer, or in the Western Hemisphere at least, it's far more affordable to buy a US Saturn and then get the action replay card. Unless you're a serious diehard enthusiast or collector, in which case a Japanese Saturn is just cool. And it puts you in the cool club. Although just owning a regular Sega Saturn or Dreamcast also puts you in the cool club with Vectrex owners, those who drive El Caminos, and Lord Carnage, who made Bruce Campbell an honorary member too. Marvelous indeed. The Japanese Saturn rocks, especially if you're a diehard enthusiast or collector. And another giant, huge classic game room thank you and shout out to our friend Felicity in Worcestershire, England, for sending this to the show, along with the Pikachu model N64 and Super Famicom. We are hooked up for Japanese games now. And let's watch this as I try to set the date into the future. The Saturn survives the robot invasion of 2084. It's like the cockroach of game systems. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Japanese Sega Saturn predicting something in 2199. Maybe the Dreamcast 2 is finally released and destroys the Earth.